Alright guys, welcome to another episode of the Gimbal and Iron Show. Today we're here with two members of CSL, the Collegiate Star League. I said I wasn't going to mess this name up, and I don't think I'm going to do it, but we're going to see. Mona Zhang? Sort of close? Kind of?
Yep, yes. Perfect.
And Timothy Young, which I'm much more confident in saying. Mona, maybe start with you and just tell us a little bit more about your role in the CSL.
Hi, I'm Hazelina, aka Mona Zhang. I founded the CSL 4 years ago, and right now I'm a head administrator. I primarily do community right now. We're starting to have specific roles, but in the past I've done lots of things: staff writing, tournament adminning, just everything.
And Tim, what about you?
Yeah, my name is Tim, and like Mona, I'm one of the head administrators, so my core responsibilities include doing production work for CSL, getting our stream together for the season, and then also we've been working on some live event stuff for next year, and we're all really busy with just a variety of different roles we have to take care of.
So I'm hoping we can start out the conversation by you guys giving us a quick history lesson on the CSL, because it is 4 years old and it spans both Brood War and Starcraft 2. I'm sort of curious where the idea for the CSL first came from and how that actually evolved into a thing, not just an idea.
I guess I'll field this question. 4 years ago, maybe a little over 4 years ago, I was a senior in high school during the summer when I had nothing to do. And what I ended up watching was Flash vs. Boxer and South Korean Pro League. And from watching all of those videos and thinking, oh my god, these people make six-digit figures, they're just kids, but they're actually like making a game this complex and like going on stages and competing and having these storylines where like Flash is eternally in battle with Zhang, like all of those things combined, I thought like that's pretty cool. And when I went into college, I thought like, hey, why don't we try to bring that here? And college is actually a place where a lot of really cool people have the same interests, and they can meet together, and they have the resources to actually make something happen, and that's what we tried to do at my school, Princeton. I think Tim probably has a similar story for UCI, but basically Princeton, we made a team, we challenged MIT. From there, all these other schools started saying, like, hey, we wanna challenge Princeton, we don't think you're very good either. So we had Yale, we had, who else, Harvard, Caltech, they all started coming out of the woodwork and saying, we have StarCraft people who are better than your StarCraft people, and then all of a sudden we had a thing. We had a league of 26 schools, and since then it's just grown every single year.
That's crazy. Oh, so, seems there's be a little bit of lag. I'm trying to see if it'll go away.
Sure.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like StarCraft people were hiding in colleges, and then when you made the first team and everyone else just suddenly sprang up, like, did you advertise? How did that happen? Did you advertise it on TL and other people got interested? And
yeah, something like that. So I think I'm trying to remember this scene, what the scene was like 4 years ago, and I think a lot of people were interested in Brood War in Korea, and they would stay up to watch it. But I don't think the idea of collegiate StarCraft, for some reason, like the idea has always had potential, but no one really had like gone and chased it. There have always been like Facebook groups of people playing StarCraft, but no one actually started challenging each other. I think what tipped the scale was basically Princeton and MIT. We just contacted each other, started trash talking each other, and then made a thing out of it. We made like a drama out of it. So we filmed these terrible looking hype videos, but Tim has seen them and cried. Yeah. So it was like to Lincoln Park, and we were like doing like pro gamer things, like this weird thing with your fist, and they were just hype videos, and we trash talked each other, we advertised on Team Liquid, and then all of a sudden, I think that's what kind of tipped the scale. So a bunch of people on Team Liquid decided, hey, we want to do that too. What also helped was commentators helped us out. SC2GG commentators, Kara, Moltrap, Diggity Clazzard. I think most of them are gone from the scene nowadays except for Moltrap, but they were really important in just spreading the word about CSL.
Well, so, Mona, you're obviously the founder, which is how you got involved with CSL. But Tim, where did you come into CSL? Where did that start for you?
I actually managed to play the first season in Brood War, and I started like on a 2v2 team. But then when StarCraft came out, I just got more involved in the community. So I reached out to CSL. I started out like as a match assistant, which is like really bad. Well, not really bad, but it's a really hard job to do because it's very thankless. But basically, every week there are substitutions and forfeits and a lot of match issues that you have to deal with, and the website can't handle that automatically. So you have to deal with a lot of people who may be a bit strung out, a bit stressed out, week by week. But you have to take care of the match issues. I did that for a while, and that's kind of where a lot of people started out, and then eventually I just got more involved with different projects, and you know, you take on more responsibilities, and before you know it, you can't go a day without working on some CSL stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't tell if you're happy or not.
Real quick,
I'm happy.
I think we're getting some, or to me it sounds like we're getting a little bit of echo. Yeah.
I can take this away as far as I can, but no promises.
Oh, good. Tim, how's it sound to you?
Just a bit.
Okay. Maybe, Mona, when you're not talking, can you mute?
Oh yeah, press the button. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so whenever you want to speak, just jump in, and then when you're not speaking, mute it, and it sounds like that clears everything up.
Yeah, just like radio, like push the button when.
Got this.
Yeah, there we go. We got this. We got this. It'll just be our push to talk. Okay. So now I'm trying to recollect myself here. For both of you, what are so the first 3 seasons of CSL? My understanding is they were Brood War, and I'm sort of curious. Highlights. I just want to know, like, what are the cool storylines that I've missed or need to go check out, and what things stand out for you guys.
I think Mona has a better memory of the Brood War season. Well, I'll start by answering like some things I knew.
Yeah.
I remember in the West Coast schools, they were really, really stacked, and they kind of still are. But there was kind of a really big rivalry between the University of California schools, particularly, I think, Berkeley, UCSD, and UC Irvine are the 3 that stand out to me. Obviously, maybe missing some, but at least UC Irvine had this really strong rivalry with UCSD, where we always meet in the finals, or like not the grand finals, but in the playoffs,
Right.
and we'd be knocking each other out back and forth. So that was at least on the West Coast, and that was one of the big storylines I think that helped grow CSL, because when you are, with a group of like-minded nerds who don't really watch any sports or anything, but this is kind of like your form of competition.
Right.
These are the kind of like, Starcraft, Brood War storylines that really keep you involved with your school. But that's the only storyline I know is my school and University of San Diego.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because I remember, like, I was the person making those divisions, and I would keep putting UCI and UCSD together, and they would keep getting mad at me. But I think at the end it made them better friends and rivals, and, made some stories. But I guess my story, I have a Princeton bias. I went to Princeton, so Princeton, its academics are good, but as a result, our StarCraft is pretty bad, I would say. But there was one season, and this was early on, I think it was season 2, where season 1 we did pretty well, but not well enough. And then season 2, there was this person called Andre Greytorp Hentrois. Back then he was just Andre to us. He's Greytorp who cast NASL, and he was just kind of like on our Team Liquid thread. He was just like, "Hey, can I come hang out?" And we said, like, we kind of ignored him for a year, and then he said it again, and they were like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, sure, why not? Just come to our practices." He started coming to our practices. He cast for us. He started coaching us. And he kind of taught us, like, preparation can take down anyone. And Princeton's Cinderella story happened in season 2, where, yeah, it was season 2, where, if you may remember, if Duke University had someone called Nooney, who is Liquid Tyler, Liquid Noni, and he was probably BA, I'm not sure. He was a very good Brood War player, incredibly good, and at that time he would just own the entire scene. Duke had Noni, and it also had Silver Sky, one other, people who became Cole RSVP, And so Princeton had to face Duke in one of the playoff matches, and it was just ridiculous. We were like David versus Goliath. It was completely David versus Goliath. But Andre, he kind of like coached us through it, and then he was like, preparation will always beat the unprepared. And when we entered the match, Princeton versus Duke, Duke was all like, hey, what are the maps again? Haha, what's set 3 maps? And then, of course, we had prepared, right? And we lost a lot of the sets. I think 2 of the sets we lost. And then Mark Ha, who was one of our other head administrators throughout the seasons, he was a Protoss. He was D+. That's probably like Diamond Masters. And playing against someone who was Grandmasters. He was, I think, B. And this is a Protoss versus Terra on Heartbreak Ridge. Mark Ha goes for a 4-gate goon, which means that he cheeses the heck out of this guy. And this was a very important cheese because usually Mark Ha throughout the season DT cheesed, but this time he just switched it up because he knew that everyone would think that he would DT cheese. And during this match, his computer starts overheating, and it becomes a complete team effort, and we're like, someone grab that man's laptop, and he's playing, and we're lifting, and he's microing, and it's like, it's ridiculous, and he wins against someone who is leagues and leagues beyond him. And then the story of the night was Mike Chen, who was our, he's a professional, or amateur professional Go player, so he's very smart. He's in trading now. He graduated and is making lots of money now. But he was a strategic mind, and he was incredibly slow. If you watch him play Starcraft, it looks like he's checking his email. And he was against Noni, and I don't know why. I think Noni didn't like really prepare, or he just underestimated Mike. But Mike, he said before the match, this will become like Hamlet. I will go this build, and he will go this build in response, because he will underestimate me. And then it just played out exactly like he planned. Noni gifted him a shuttle with 2 Reavers. It was great. So Noni just sent a shuttle with 2 Reavers all the way across the map, and it died. And then Mike ended up winning. And then Duke underestimated us once more. We were 2-2 going into ace. Duke didn't send out Noni. And from there, Mike Chen just beat whoever they sent out, and it was a 3-2 win for Princeton. And that was just an amazing upset. It was, no one would have believed that it would happen. It'd be like, I don't know, I don't want to make any analogies. StarCraft 2. It's basically like some foreign team beating IM. It was ridiculous, but that's it.
Damn. Those are 2 really crazy stories. Oh, wow. Are VODs available? Are VODs around at all? That's the sort of thing that, I don't know.
I think so. I don't know about that game, but there are old CSL Brood War VODs, like, on floating around on YouTube, like on Diggity's channel, Moletrap's channel, like, I don't know, those are the only 2 I know that are floating around. Okay. And I think there are some VODs of, like, Day 9 playing for USC, playing Brood War. So, like, yeah, it's, like, some really weird hidden gems, but we haven't had the time to really archive them or anything, but they're out there. So if you're, like, really hardcore, you can find them.
I might have to become really hardcore and go find them. They sound like a lot of fun to watch, to be quite honest. Well, one of the other things I wanted to know, sort of still focusing on these first 3 seasons, because I think it's, I don't know, I just find it really fascinating, to be quite honest. I'm curious sort of what changes, what some of the big changes in the first 3, over the first 3 seasons were, in structure, in mindset, from the administrative side, also from the team side. For example, one question for me being, just out of curiosity, has the CSL always required teams to pay up, to buy in to participate, or is that sort of a recent decision? Sort of, were there any other changes that happened like that over the first 3 seasons? Is more and more people start participating?
You can talk about that.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. So season 1, everything, CSL has always been evolving in a lot of different ways, and the reason why I think it is the case is that CSL can either be a really fun league, like recreational, and like you just play with your friends and it's like, oh my god, I'm playing StarCraft, or it can be incredibly competitive and serious and like professional or close to professional, like an actual varsity league. And that's where we want to reach, but at the same time we don't want to give up the fun aspect of it, that we're all just here to play StarCraft together. So we've always been negotiating that line. Season 1, I think you'll probably notice, I don't think we have records of the rules anymore, but the rules were just a lot more lax. And the rules have been constantly changing because people, like, once there are prize pools, people begin cheating, and we have to take that into account. We have to make sure that there are no observers. We have to, like, keep in mind, like, even things as small as the amount of time it takes before you can claim a forfeit. That has changed throughout the seasons because we realized gradually people are taking this league seriously, and some teams aren't getting their, like, time's worth of it because others aren't taking it as seriously. So a lot of things have changed. Registration in particular, we've changed recently just because we're... Maybe, Tim, you can feel this. It's been a recent change.
What?
Registration fee?
The registration fee? Yeah. So, you need your mic. Yeah. So, we just introduced a registration fee this season, because last season was probably like the biggest season of CSL yet, in not only in terms of schools, but we also really made a huge effort to do offline live events. You know, of course, everyone's been really inspired by like MLG and IPL and ASL, and we obviously wanted to do the same thing for colleges. So at the beginning of the season, we had this really elaborate plan to contact different clubs and see if they want to do host a CSL event for us, and we would, you know, help them out, try to give them as much support as possible. And that turned out to be a lot harder than it turned out to be because there were just so many different factors to running an event that people aren't aware of, that we weren't aware of. So it came down to actually basically me running an event in Irvine, Mona ran an event in Princeton, and then the Tesla guys who did the Lone Star Clash, you know, they had a CSL event alongside Lone Star Clash. So that was like the third successful. And there's a fourth one at UMN by like the own gaming club there. But it was really hard to get all of them kind of off the ground. And a big reason for that was resources. Now, I'm not, like, I think some people listen to this and think we're just charging registration fee for resources, but that's not really the case. But one big issue was, like, you know, we're really pushing the limits of what we can do with this league, and we can, a lot of the time, we'd be paying out of pocket or, like, going to a lot of sponsors, basically just asking for money when we, you know, we need to offer them a lot of things back. So one part of the registration fees, it helps, obviously pay for a lot of stuff that we want to do with the league, but probably the number one reason why we put the registration fee in is we also split the divisions for Season 6, and one division is kind of called the Competitive League, and one division is called the Recreational League. And basically, the Competitive League is where the registration fee is, and that's because the number one reason is we need people to be dedicated in this league, because actually throughout all of CSL, some schools drop out, people don't show up to matches on time. It's just kind of like any other league. Like, you have all these logistical issues of just people not paying attention or not being on top of things. And we feel like once they kind of, you know, buy in, or they have some kind of fee associated with it, and it's a pretty significant amount, but not too overwhelming, they'll be like, okay, you know, I paid for this league, I paid for the service, I should probably make the most out of it. And in return, if they're giving us those resources, now we have all these different, you know, we have a whole range of resources that we don't need to go to sponsors for, we don't need to pull out of our pocket or work extra jobs or anything. We have, you know, an obligation also to the people, to our community. So, you know, they're giving us the resources, and in return we're going to give them really, really great service in the league. We're going to do, you know, we're going to do our due diligence, we're going to do them justice. So it's a two-way streak, and that's kind of the main reason why, for all those variety of reasons, is why we kind of introduced the registration fee. It's just kind of the next obvious next level kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and you actually could answer like three additional questions I was going to ask later on, so that's perfect. But could you or Mona maybe speak for a moment? You mentioned that you guys had this grand vision going into this, you know, in the 5th season, about getting all these local events started, and you ran into a bunch of maybe not complications, but there are a bunch of requirements and things you had to do that you didn't expect. Can you sort of tell us some of those things that most people aren't thinking about before you actually try and host an event?
Yeah, go ahead, Mona.
Yeah, so basically what we're trying to do with CSL Live events is basically host an MLG in the IPL, maybe on a smaller scale where it's, but also on a larger scale in some sense because they're teams competing at a live venue, and I don't think that's something that people have done until very recently with IPL TAC. And what we had to do, like my personal experience with it was, we ran the East Coast qualifying LAN for the Collegiate Star League. We gave the 2 top spots entry into the playoffs for the CSL Season 5 league bracket, and we ran that that tournament, and it was basically me and like one other guy at Princeton, and then all of CSL admins, and then we invited about 24, 25 colleges, each with 5 players. We had like 100 to 200 players, all in a small room that did not necessarily have the power supply that we had. It was a mess for the first hour. It was insane because we didn't really expect some of the numbers that we got. And by that I mean, like, we knew we were going to get 100 to 200 players, but we didn't expect each of them to have a monitor and a desktop. We expected some laptops. These things all factored into the fact that we didn't have enough outlets, and then the outlets were on the same breakers. I've learned a very valuable lesson from hosting that you always need external power at a live event. And these are things that you learn if you have hosted something like this. Like maybe, I'm sure MLG, IPL, they're very careful now that they have power and they have internet, and they hire like internet trucks and everything. But those are things that when you're trying to just start up, you don't necessarily know. So I mean, those are just like some of the technical stuff that I learned. And I think, Tim, did you have a lot of technical difficulties too? I thought UCI ran pretty smoothly.
Yeah, actually on the power side, like, I was lucky enough that we had our own like dedicated student event planner that I went to, and I said, here's our vision for the event. And it was actually kind of insane, like, what I pitched him. But he was, like, really understanding. And the first thing he told me, he's like, well, we're not going to give you the room that you asked for because the power supply just isn't going to cut it there. You're going to be in this room and this room only because that's the only place that can sustain the power. So, obviously, like, we're talking about, you know, weird power issues, which, you know, only happen at Princeton. But it's something you never really consider because even if you get together with, like, 20 or 30 people in a classroom, power isn't an issue. But when you want to, like, have cameras and stream and have lights and have like 50 different, like hundreds of different desktops and laptops running at the same time, like the power capacity of a room actually becomes an issue. Another thing we had to consider was like parking passes for like our potential sponsors, which is something else my event planner brought up. And then like, just like really small things like, you know, how far away is the bathroom? Where can people get food? Luckily, like some people came up to me like, I forgot my VGA cable. Can you help me out? And luckily we had a student store that people can just go and buy a new VGA cable. Like all these little weird things that you never ever think about like on a day-to-day basis. And they're just really simple. And that's what kind of makes it really frustrating when you run an event. But it's really hard to really like accumulate like everything you need to do to run an event because each venue is different and each thing is different. And overall, like the biggest lesson we learned is just be as prepared as possible and like really think about all the edge cases because it's really easy to get the straightforward stuff right, but it's always the weird edge cases that like can mess up the event.
Right. Let's sort of going off that, and you were also talking about the rules. When you were talking about the rules of the CSL constantly evolving and changing as the league grows, I'm curious if sort of spanning all of CSL right now, if there's a most important or most significant lesson you've learned from everything you guys have done? Like, if there's one thing that just stands out as this, like, really hit me home and I've never forgotten it since.
I'm trying to think of something. Maybe Tim?
Yeah, this is actually really easy. Is when we're making our rules, we just imagine, like, the worst person in the world and, like, them playing in our league. And then we just make the rules around them because people will like have found every possible way to game the system because they're all really smart college kids. But that's just kind of the sad case. We learned kind of the hard way that when there are any prizes on the line, people are prone to cheat. So, you know, with all the debates kind of on the forums about like, you know, we got to trust players, we got to do this, we got to make stuff like. I'm kind of in the really cynical camp that anytime there's anything on the line, you have to account for cheating, and it will happen. Like, it's not even, if it happens, it's gonna happen. So when we make our rules, we always keep that in mind. And that's that's kind of my overall goal for that.
I think something I learned as an administrator, I guess, is that you always have to make hard decisions. Like, I don't know if that's, like, really a lesson learned. It's not necessarily a lesson learned, but as an administrator, as a tournament admin, you always have to know that no matter what decision you make, it's probably unfair, but the rules are there for a reason. And the reason I say that is, like, we've had a lot of cases where teams, we have like a 10-minute rule or a 30-minute rule, so if your team doesn't show up 30 minutes after the designated time, then you forfeit as a team. And then if your player doesn't show up 10 minutes after a set ends, it's a forfeit for the player. And these are hard and fast rules, because, I mean, unless we don't have those rules, you have to follow the rules unless... You always have to follow the rules, basically. And it's really unfortunate, because sometimes it's like, hey, a player just, like, you know, he just can't get his internet to work. He's on a taxi to an internet cafe. Can you please let him play? You know, there are 11 minutes. But you really can't bend it sometimes. And it's a hard line to negotiate for me, because I always think, like, what's the smartest thing to do? We shouldn't let players... manipulate the rules in an unsportsmanlike way, but at the same time we have to respect everyone's time, and that's why the rules are in place. So it's always been the case for me, and I think a lot of our admins, that we do have to make tough decisions that are unfair for someone, but you just do the one that's less unfair. But those are just the complex problems of making rules in the first place. It's just difficult.
It's like almost akin to public policy making. Like, you'll never make anyone happy, but you always have to, like, you know, make these crazy, weird, elaborate rules that people, like, you can never do anything right sometimes. It's like, it makes me sympathize with Blizzard sometimes, because, like, sometimes no matter what we do, people will give a flack, and then we just have to shrug and say, you know, we gave you as much information as we can to say why we made a rule or why we made a decision, and if you can't take it for what it's worth, like, I'm sorry, if, like, any other decision would be more unfair than it is now. So, I guess it's kind of like a really big downer, but when it comes to rules and stuff, like, that's just the case, is you're always accounting not for the people who are, like, upright players and upright citizens, but kind of for, like, the nitty-gritty edge cases.
Well, can I ask you both, going off of what you both said, first off, the hardest rule you guys have ever had to make, and second, the weirdest rule that anyone's actually broken or found a way around? Or the weirdest workaround for a rule, like the weirdest way someone's tried to game the system.
Oh, I know one. I know one. So, I know a way that someone's gamed the system, and I don't know if I should keep the names anonymous.
Keep the names anonymous.
I'll keep the names anonymous. So there's Team A and Team B. Let's see if I can talk about it in this way. So Team A is sitting in BattleNet and saying, well, where's Team B? Why is Team B not here yet? I'm only waiting the 30 allotted minutes for Team B, otherwise I'm going to take the forfeit. And then Team B, that day, for some reason, Team B showed up, but Team A assumed, okay, no, I'm telling the story wrong. Okay, Team A, contacted Team B, and Team B said, I'm not going to be here. So A was like, well, I'm not going to reorganize my schedule for you, so I'm just going to take the forfeit. But unfortunately, what A didn't do was A didn't stay in the channel up to the 30 minutes. He just assumed that he got the forfeit. But that's not how our rules work. You have to stay in channel and be there for 30 minutes and then take your forfeit. So A just misunderstood this. And then it turns out B, Ninja snuck onto BattleNet, even though he said he couldn't. And B was just sitting in BattleNet, and then he was like, well, I'm just gonna wait here. And then A is suddenly like, holy shit, I have to get online. So he's on a bus trying to get there, and this is the person who was like, I will not move my schedule a minute. I will not budget a minute. And he arrives at like 8:31, which is 1 minute after 1 minute after the window is over. So of course B takes the win. And he demands for it, in fact. He's like, well, he wasn't going to show me any mercy, I'm going to take it. What B admits to me after the fact is that he didn't have anything with him. He didn't have his mouse. He didn't have his keyboard. He didn't have he had Starcraft. He was logged on. So the only thing he was doing, he was just staying there trying to get the win. And if A showed up, then he would forfeit. But if A didn't show up, then he just took the win. So, I mean, as an administrator, I was like, why are you telling me this, first of all? And then I was like, well, I made the ruling already. You are well within our rules. Good job, I guess. So B took the win. Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think, like, I guess going back to the question previously, I don't know, Mona, I don't know why I did that, but, like, anytime a situation like that kind of came up, probably, like, the best advice I got ever is no matter what, like, the games have to be played. So if people are trying to, like, game the system in which they don't have to play games, like, obviously that case was really weird. But, like, there are times where people they're like, oh, you know, whatever, I want the forfeit, I don't want to play these games. If your entire team, if both teams are online and they can play the games, we're going to make them play the games. Like, that's just the spirit of the league. The spirit of the league isn't to hand out forfeits and do a wild substitution loophole. It's to get people to play their StarCraft games. So, at the end of the day, we have to just make sure they're played. And if they're not, then, you know, that's just how it goes.
Well, can I ask you both, just as a quick follow-up, is there been a really difficult decision that you found, difficult decision that you struggled to decide which side was the one to fall
on? Yeah. Well, okay, I'll go ahead. I think me and Mona may be thinking the same one, but it was with, I think, Rutgers University and Brandeis University. Oh, well, I just said who it was, but whatever. Rutgers University versus Brandeis University, and it's still a very controversial decision. But basically, it was long story short, it was a smurfing accusation, and we had to take, you know, we all were analyzing these replays for about a week, and we were sending these replays to, like, people on Team Liquid that we really trusted, and, like, high-level people on Team Liquid that we really trusted, and we were consulting all these outside people, and, like, at the end of the day, we were trying to verify if these two people were smurfing on each other's accounts, and, like, we were like, well, we can't say without a shadow of a doubt, but the evidence was really, really, really stacked, and it doesn't help when a team is especially rude. Like, you know, we're all human beings, so if people are rude to us, like, I'm even worse. Like, if someone's rude to me, I don't care what justice is, I just, like, you know, blow them off. But, like, it was just a really bad situation because we couldn't say 100%, but we could say, like, maybe 75 or 80% that they were cheating, but we had to go with the precedent that we have, like, the punishment was that the school would be banned from the league for, like, at least a season, if not forever. So, you know, that was a really harsh punishment, and we just, we handed them, we basically said, like, you know, make sure you check your jobs, you check all the stuff, to make sure it never happens again, but we'll be watching you. And we, you know, it was a really crappy decision because the other team, to this day, would like to see the team be queued, but, you know, those are the rules, those are the precedents, and we still have to figure out how we're going to fix it next season. Yeah, and that was a really hard decision to make because we spent a really long time making it, and at the end, nothing came of it.
Yeah, it's the exact same situation I was thinking of, and I don't really know what to say. Like, that's a situation where no matter what, like, whatever decision you make, it's probably unfair. And we just had to come up with the one that was slightly less unfair. I mean, I don't really know what we can do to fix that, and that's one of our growing pains. But
well, we're introducing, we're introducing, like, a much expedited replay review process, because originally we thought it'd be a pretty quick case. We take a look, we test it to a couple people, but, like, since the replays were just so, like, similar but not similar, like, it was racking our brains for a very, very long time. So basically, we have to think of a new process to fix it.
Also in Division 1, since people will be paying money to play, it's going to be incredibly competitive and official. So that's something that we cannot allow observers, for example. We just can't. Observer hacking happens, and it's hard to place, it's hard to find. There have been multiple occasions of just observer hacking and maybe smurfing, and we don't know. And the only way we can, like, prevent that from happening is maybe demanding simultaneous sets, maybe just banning obs, putting delays on streams. These are all like things that make it slightly less fun to play for teams, because then you can't like sit behind your player and go like, hey, I'm watching you play, or like obsing your teammates' games. But it's something that has to happen.
Yeah.
So can I ask you guys, when you're talking about smurfing, just to sort of clarify what it means in this specific instance? Because I thought, is the accusation that someone from another school was playing on the separate team? Because my understanding is that CSL technically allows anyone of any level to play. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was basically like, it was from the same school, so it was just a really high-level player from the same school playing on someone else's lower-level account. And the suspicion was raised because this guy was a pretty low-level player, and he beat like a Masters player in a PvP. Okay. And, PvP introduces, they were just the whole whirlwind of this mess.
Right.
So.
Oh my goodness. I knew just half of our conversation was going to take a full hour.
That's fine.
No, it's wonderful. I just wish we had more time. We'll, once maybe season 6 really gets underway, or when it finishes, we'll get you guys back if we can and talk some more. But I am sort of curious, really going back to the history really quick, especially because there's been so much tension, maybe like on TL in particular, TL community, between Brood War and Starcraft 2. When you guys decided to make Season 4 Starcraft 2, did you get a lot of negative feedback and anger, or was it sort of a smooth transition?
I mean, it was a mix. I think a lot of people, it's just that Starcraft 2 reaches out to a lot more people, simply because, you might say that it's a more casual player base. People who haven't been watching Brood War all the time suddenly are interested in Starcraft 2 because, I mean, it's a new game, everyone knows about it, everyone's hearing about it. So a large majority of our teams, you have to understand, between Season 4 and Season 5, we went from like 140 teams to 318, something like that. Yeah, and all of those new schools were Starcraft 2 based, so we had a lot of excitement about Starcraft 2, but something I'll never forget is that a lot of our teams who were, Brood War fans, diehard fans, they've never come back. Whole teams have changed. The entire infrastructure of teams have changed. Rutgers, for example, they had a roster, like an amazing roster. They were so bad-mannered, it was hilarious. Like, it was ridiculous. They made like terrible raps and like it was terrible, and they would BM everyone. And now we have Rutgers good-mannered, and StarCraft 1 Rutgers and StarCraft 2 Rutgers are completely separate, and StarCraft 1 Rutgers makes fun of StarCraft 2 Rutgers. But we see groups of people just disappearing from our community, kind of, which I regret. I think Georgia Tech also changed a lot of its team composition. Can't remember some of the other teams, but I wish we could bring Brood War back. Maybe one day.
Well, sort of going off of that, is there a particular reason why you guys decided to go only StarCraft 2? Was it logistics and staff and management decision, or for example, over in Korea they had their dual tournament idea. Was something like that ever floated around and then rejected for one reason or another, or was it always so we're just going to transition ourselves to moving fully over to StarCraft 2?
Oh, well, I think, Mona would know, because I wasn't around as a head admin. But I always feel like if I had to make a decision, I would just say the Brood War, like the foreigner Brood War scene, as awesome as it was, just is not at the scale of what StarCraft 2 is now. And, you saw the growth of those schools. I would say that's only because of StarCraft 2, unfortunately. I really like Brood War a lot, but the case of StarCraft 2 is just immensely more popular. Yeah. Okay. I thought Mona was going to jump in, but
I'll jump in. Yeah, we thought about it. The thing is, I think everyone can agree that StarCraft 2 just bring so much more attention to the scene, to esports. I don't want to say growing esports, but we're growing esports. And one of the ways to do that really was to, like, you know, show everyone this new game, Starcraft 2, which is, you know, like a second cousin of Starcraft. It's not really a direct son or anything, but I guess that's the reason why we went there, because it brings in a lot of new players, new spectators, and ultimately, if we want to have collegiate esports and have people competing in video games, StarCraft 2 is a huge way to just reach out to a mainstream audience, and that's something that we want to make happen. And of course, everyone loves Brood War still, so I mean, we should. I don't know, we like running the occasional, you know, like StarCraft 2 Brood War tournament and that sort of thing, but like ultimately StarCraft 2, even League of Legends, even DOTA, those are places where we want to go in order to just increase collegiate esports everywhere.
I'm glad you brought up League and Dota because I want to ask about those as well, but focusing real quick on Season 6, quick term, or short future here. I guess one of the things I wanted to know a little more about was what people can expect in Season 6. I know, for those who want to, they can certainly go check out the website, and a lot is listed there about some of the changes, but I was hoping you guys could give us a little rundown about some of the changes that are happening in 6, some of the new things we'll be seeing.
Oh, okay, well, Season 6, obviously we have the 2 divisions, which is one is the competitive division where you have to buy into, but the competitive division, Division 1, is going to have a pretty enormous prize pool that we're hoping to award schools. Division 2 is going to be like CSL has always been, fun, recreational kind of thing, and it's free to play. So the freemium model is basically what we're going at. We're going to have, we will have live events, but we can't talk about that much right now since a lot of it is still in flux. But people can expect some really awesome stuff to be happening in the next year in terms of like esports on college campuses, so that's going to be really cool. And in terms, I think StarCraft 2 is going to kind of chug along as it's always has. We're going to do a lot more awesome stuff with League of Legends that is in the live events plan. And a lot of people have been asking us, have been banging on our doors figuratively to do Dota 2. We will work for you to do Dota 2. And we literally have a staff worth of people doing that. So it's something we're going to explore as well. Obviously the international just happened and it was really fun to watch, so it's not anything we can ignore. But in terms of League of Legends, I think that's going to experience probably the most growth next year too. Not the whole game, but in our league. Well, the whole game as well, but in our league, because we're going to introduce, we're planning to introduce an actual league system, not just individual tournaments, but round robin into group play. And Riot actually has been really supportive of the idea as well. Riot Jaws, their collegiate community coordinator, has always given us the thumbs up and has been really supportive and patting us on the back. So, I think we can expect a lot of great things for League of Legends fans as well. But people want to do CS:GO, Dota 2, any game they want, even Guild Wars 2. We're open to any games. We all play a lot of games, but it's just a matter of time, resources, which is limited, like in StarCraft.
Well, I think you actually completely preempted my next question. Was with the addition of League, a CSL League being very recent, I was curious sort of what factors go into deciding to bring in a new game and add a new game to the CSL circuit, and sort of if we would, you talked about Dota 2, if we would see a Dota 2 circuit or something like that in the future, and what would determine whether or not that happens?
Honestly, just interest and enthusiasm. We love all games. Our admin team, there's someone out there who plays whatever game you're thinking of. Toho. I'm sure Tim plays Toho. The question of whether it can become collegiately competitive, I'm not sure. But, things like Dota 2, as long as there are people coming to us and saying, this is a great game, I want to make this happen, help us make it happen, and we're sure. Same with League of Legends. We don't discriminate between the MOBAs. We were looking into even Smite. I haven't tried Smite yet. Was that it? Smite? Ascend?
Yeah, Smite.
Yeah. I want to try that too and see maybe that will work. But honestly, since our time and resources are limited, in StarCraft, what we need is people who are equally as enthusiastic and equally as what is the term? Go-getters? We need go-getters to just, like, jump on us and say, hey, I want CSL Dota 2, and then we'll be like, okay, we'll help you make it happen. And together we hopefully will be able to have a lot more games and make collegiate esports actually collegiate esports and not just collegiate Starcraft, collegiate League of Legends, so on.
Yeah.
Right. Well, can I ask you actually about that? Just one other thing, because it's been coming up really often these last couple of days, and that is Heart of the Swarm. If we don't really know when it will come out, but if it comes out before the end of the year, how do you deal with that in Season 6, or does that happen in Season 7, or I'm just sort of curious how the expansion would affect the league.
With our latest FAQ that just came out on our website, cstarleague.com, it said that Division 1 would play out the rest of the season with Wings of Liberty. So because there's a buy-in, there's a lot on the line, we don't want to introduce anything random. And Division 2, it's kind of still up in the air. Some people just said they want to switch right over during the public release, even if it's mid-season. And we may do that, we may not do that. Division 2, that's much more flexible, but I think the plan right now is in Division 1, we're going to just ride it out until the end of the season. Because that just makes the most sense competitively. And yeah, that's just the decision right now.
Makes sense. Well, sort of to close out our hour, I'm curious from both of you, sort of looking inwards at CSL and everything you guys have done and everything you're looking to do and working on right now. What do you see is your greatest strength as a league and your biggest weakness that you need to work on? Big question.
I think QXC put this really well at one of the CSL All-Stars event, and he said everyone can be a hero, everyone can be a pro gamer, and that's something that we're really aiming to do. Anyone in college can become someone that their team relies on. You can become your ace player. You don't have to be top grandmaster, sponsored by a pro team. You can just work really hard and start, getting the support you need, having a team environment. A lot of our teams are actually coming up with gaming houses. There's a Berkeley house, CSL house. Yeah. There's another one in UND. I'm not sure what it stands for. UNT?
Oh, UND.
No, UND too. Yeah, it's crazy. They're actually just gathering together. They're just a group of friends, and they have a common goal, and that's to get better at Starcraft and play for their team. And that's something that I don't know. I think it's actually the best way to grow American esports. But it really is. Because you have all these people who are just growing together, and you have the perfect sort of infrastructure to start making this happen. And a lot of teams, they might even get sponsored. I know in Korea they're doing the StarTale is sponsoring, was it Seoul National University?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And we might, I don't know, let's see if it happens in the United States. The more StarCraft that we have played on the amateur collegiate level, I think the more that Starcraft can just grow. We haven't hit the skill ceiling yet, and at least in CSL, and it'd be amazing to see that happen. And eventually, for collegiate gamers to become professional gamers, and then professional gamers retiring and coming back to colleges to become coaches, and that way everyone just benefits. Can you imagine paid retired pro gamers as coaches? That would be amazing. And I'll let Tim describe anything else.
Well, you left me with just the weaknesses.
Sorry.
I mean, the biggest struggle I guess we would have is just time and resources. Kind of the darker side of the whole league administration was last year. I personally was aiming for a minor in computer science. I was a chemistry major, and I couldn't do it anymore because I had to choose between doing that and CSL. So I dropped all these extra classes I was taking, and I wasn't too happy about it, but it was the decision I made. And we also have to think about bringing in new administrators, and I mean it's quite elitist, but we want to pick the right people to be involved with the league because, as you know, or as a lot of people know, a lot of people are trying to do this esports things. We feel for the wrong reasons, and we're not super noble or anything like that, but the wrong intention and the wrong thing could topple the league, or it could bring the league in the wrong direction and just run into the ground. So basically, our struggle is kind of like growing and then kind of continually teaching people to be leaders for CSL. And kind of the dirty secret, I guess, we'll let out right now is I graduated, Mona graduated. I went back to school, thankfully. Mona's not. I don't know what she's doing, to be honest. But I mean, Mona's actually working a lot on CSL with her time and trying to sort out her life. We have administrators who had to take time off to sort out their life. So the struggle we'll always have is that it's kind of our hobby, or we've been treating it like a hobby, and the time constraints only lend it to that. And if the way we're pushing it and the way we are growing it, it may not, we can't treat it like a hobby anymore. It has to be something more. Well, obviously, the resources and the infrastructure aren't there yet, so, that's it. Like, we don't know what to do in that regard. We just gotta keep going.
I think in that like I think one of our greatest strengths is also our greatest weakness, and that's that we grow so much. Like, everyone wants to play college Starcraft because it's fun. It's really fun. And then you have alright, so 150 teams in season 4, that was fine. We have 4 or 5 main admins, but we're doing okay. We just get 30 to 40 emails a day, and you can just answer those in an hour. But all of a sudden, with 300 schools, you have an amazing amount. You can never empty your inbox. It's impossible. Yeah. And they all say the same thing, and you're like, oh my god, what am I supposed to do? And sometimes you have these weirdo edge cases. We have so many weird emails that we just don't know how to respond to sometimes. And it's a struggle for us because we're so big now. We're going through growing pains. We need to find the leaders, as Tim said, to, come help, come grow CSL with us, grow collegiate esports with us. And it's difficult to find because in order to run CSL, in order to become a CSL staff member, you really have to buckle down and do dirty work. And that's basically what I was doing all day today. I'm really tired because I went through all our previous archives and just wrote out all our teams, contact information, and the teams who never really signed up but halfway signed up, I wrote that down too because we don't have firm records of it, and then I'm compiling it. And this is something we've never done because we just never had time to do, and this is something that's really important to do when you're trying to become an actually professional organized league. And so me and 3 other admins just sat there and typed into an Excel spreadsheet for, 4 hours. And that's what esports is. A lot of people think that esports is, going to the parties and, having esports drama, stories, but that's not really what it is.
Yeah.
It's Excel. PDF.
Microsoft Excel.
Yeah.
It's a moment like this where I wish I could just bring James Banks on. I mean, so I work with Definitive Esports, and they're doing, it's very different, but it's also something very similar that Definitive Esports is going through, and that it's sort of a similar situation where it's a volunteer organization that's grown very rapidly, and it's on one level it's a volunteer job. It's something you do for fun. On another level, you love what you're doing. You want to take it seriously, which means you've got to put in a lot of time, but you're not getting paid for that time. And the more you put in, the more you end up needing to put in. It's this continuous cycle. It just builds on itself. So I can definitely empathize, as I've been trying to help out with that. Well, I think this is sort of a perfect transition, and that is, we've been talking now for almost an hour about CSL, about all the things, where CSL has been, where it's going, all the ups and downs, all the greatness of it. For anyone who is listening and wants to get involved or wants to try and be an admin, put themselves out there, see if they qualify, what's the best way for them to find out more information?
So if you want to help out, we have a staff page of what we need at the moment at cstarleague.com/jobs, and we put them through kind of a strenuous interview process, but if they're good people, we let them on, and if they do good work, we definitely let them on. That's the quickest way, and then just get into a role and just go at it with as much passion as you have. If you want to sign your team up, which is a question we get constantly, for now, be patient. That's all you got to do. Is we're relaunching a new website. We're gonna new functionality, new sign up process, new everything. So just wait. Sign up details will be released. We have a target near end September, and by then the instructions will be there to just sign up your team. the best thing you can do right now is just, if you're in school already, just get your club together and just start, hanging out. Like, just start building your local club. That's like the best way you could help. Actually, consistently, if you have no idea what to do, just build your local club. Because that actually is, like, helps so much. It is, like, the best best thing you could ever do.
Yeah, and when you build it and then take pictures and, like, go on dinners, go do random non-StarCraft stuff too, build your family, take pictures and tell us about it, and then we want to tell everyone else about how you guys are doing a good job, because I think that's something that we really want to do this season, especially, our community is full of great people and great organizations. TESPA has started crazy things down there in Texas, the Lone Star Clash, held by a bunch of college students, and usually that's said, like, college students, what can they do? But they can do a lot. You can do a lot, and we want to hear about these stories and share these stories and make sure that everyone else says, hey, Tespa, how did you hold that event? We kind of wanted to do one too, and then you can start sharing experiences, and I can, Tim and I can give you our experiences of like power outages and so on and so forth, and together we can actually make esports happen, and we can start hosting a bunch of tiny MLGs, tiny IPLs at all these college campuses. And can you imagine what would happen if every single week there's a USC versus UCLA game? It'd be amazing.
That's a nice vision. I like that. I like that vision very much. I think I would be quite okay with that. Be a nice way to get my sports without having to go down to the stadium. Is there anything else either of you would like to add that maybe we haven't touched on yet? I mean, we'll do shots at the end, but like another subject or sort of go back to anything we talked about previously. If not, all good. I just want to make sure that we give you a chance to really speak fully.
I feel like it's like such a downer to like leave it on nothing. Okay, I have one.
Okay.
I guess season 5. The most valuable lesson we learned was after hosting these events, not just to learn how to host the events, but we really got to know a lot of different clubs, event to event. Like in Irvine, I got to know all the West Coast schools, and then I also got a chance to go to the Princeton school and get to learn the culture about all the East Coast schools. And I also got to go to Texas during Lone Star class, learn about the Texas schools, and there are all these. It's like almost a mind-blowing amount of many communities and many cultures that are emerging. And the best thing, like, people always look to us and they want to help grow the big organization, but I always kind of never had a chance to tell them, like, growing your local club or scene is, like, so important. Even if it's, like, one very small piece, it's still a very one small important piece of, like, a very big picture. So, yeah.
I think another thing that Tim reminded me of was just something that happened at the Princeton LAN, and I met a lot of teams there, and it was a blessing, I guess, a reward for me for these like 4 years of doing whatever I'm doing, Excel spreadsheets, to see these teams come together and, be really emotional about the game sometimes, people were on the edge of their seats, people were maybe, like, just looking so frustrated after games, people were yelling, like, you can't get out, you can't get out. It was just amazing just to hear all these different people and shouting and, crying, and I don't know, even Duran Parsi, who's another head administrator of the CSL, shed manly tears after his win of CSL Season 3, I believe. And it's just that we're making things happen, and we have brought South Korean Pro League to the United States on a collegiate level, and that's something I never would have imagined, but I'm so happy that we did. The story that I want to remember, or that I do remember from Princeton LAN, is this guy walks up to me, and he kind of, like, looks me over, and then he's like, Hazelnut, I heard about you 4 years ago. You were in, like, Commentator Idol or something, and I thought you were trash at commentating. He told me that first, and then he was like, and then I heard about you wanting to start a collegiate Star League, and I thought, there's no way this girl is going to start a collegiate Star League. That's ridiculous. And then 4 years later, he was, like, standing there at Princeton University, known for its academics, but now dedicated completely to Starcraft and K-pop, and a huge stage and a huge audience just cheering with like banners and posters. And he stood there and he said, I just had to say, I'm sorry I doubted you, and this is amazing. Thank you. And that was just like one of the moments when I was like, well, maybe we have made it happen, and my dream is just to continue to make that happen for everyone. And like, we only had 4 events last season: Princeton, Texas, Minnesota, Irvine. We need to make more of those happen. They really do change people's lives. Like, Harvard University suddenly got a second win just from like doing well at the Princeton LAN, and suddenly they're saying, maybe we can do it, maybe let's practice. And these live events are really like what makes this spark in CSL, and I think that's one of the directions that we're definitely going in.
Oh, I don't want to ruin it, but now I gotta ask. I do have to ask for shout-outs to close out after two really, really nice endings. Shout-outs you guys would like to give.
Kind of everyone who's just supported us. Oh, obviously everyone who has supported us, but like people who have come up to me at Mona and just said like, thank you for doing this, because even if it's like a small thanks or like a small text on BattleNet, it like really means a lot after wading through a lot of work, sometimes a lot of stuff that people say, to feel like your league is actually doing something for people. And to everyone who showed up to the live events and donated to our season 5 finals fundraiser. Really, it's really like a cliche thing to say, but it's like it's impossible without everyone playing and everyone supporting us. So yeah, shout outs to everyone for that.
Yeah, and shout outs to every one of you who, like, we have these, like, secret fans. It's amazing. They're, like, really old sometimes. They're, like, 30, and they just really like college sports and Starcraft, and they tune in every day. Like, sometimes CSL wonders. So CSL, we are an amateur league, so our games aren't as high in skill, and then, you know, like, we only have 20 viewers sometimes for some random stream we have. But those are the 20 viewers, and they're enjoying the stream, and there's always that one guy in the 20 viewers who, like, subscribes to your stream and, like, takes a day off of work just to watch your stream, and it's amazing. You guys who support the CSL, who are fans of the CSL, you really make it what it is. Shout outs to all the players and to the 20-something schools. I just put out a list on the Collegiate Star League Facebook and Twitter. There are like 20 schools who have been up with us all these 4 years for 5 seasons. Shout outs to them for holding out all those years. And I think that's it.
Fantastic. I gotta say, I was really excited going into this interview. Like, was thinking about this, and it's funny. I was thinking about what I was going to ask you guys, and my mind was blank, and I started writing the questions, and I couldn't stop. And so I was really excited coming into this. Just so many things I wanted to ask, and every expectation I have for this interview has just been blown away. I mean, it's been really, really cool to talk to both of you, and I'm so grateful that you guys took the time. You know, the hour plus, whatever, that you guys took the time to really share the experiences, the passion, the energy you have for this. It's really, really cool. So, both Mona and Tim, thank you so much. Major props. You can't see me right now because on the Skype I don't have my cam, but I am doing a thumbs up.
Right.
It'll look weird, but that's okay. Thank you both, and I think that actually just about does it for this week's episode. So also thank you to everyone tuning in, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Thank you.